being with our river and seeing our progress. I need to mention how we started off with our tupua te kawa values, because I believe we have in these positions that we occupy an opportunity and a responsibility to set meaning and context through values Maori that will add to the capabilities and the capacities of our organisations, our governing organisations. I hope we get an opportunity to share those thoughts with you. Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora tātou. Tēnā tātou, tēnā koe, ai, nā i whakariti i tāua, ai, ko Maria Graham, tēnei e mi anō nei. We've got a presentation that's going to go up. We're looking at building trust capability, our court's role. Our court's role is quite specific in the sense that it forms the foundation. It forms the foundation of those of you that are trustees, of either keeping you in line as trustees or setting you up as a trustee. So, I've got the clicker control, haven't I? Okay, let's see. And that's within the context of our Act in terms of the two key principles that our Act is wrapped around: retention within the whānau, and those who whakapapa to that whenua, and the second one, which is our core role, facilitating the occupation, development and management. And utilisation. So these are points we touched on earlier, but just to set the scene, in our management structures, our Māori land organisations, our Māori land trusts are the vehicle that we, in our facilitation role, enable the whānau, who are the Māori landowners, to develop and use their land as per their aspirations or as they see fit.
So here we have in this photo here, putting a face to our judicial system. And in particular, a man standing in the middle of our photograph there with his korowai on, Judge Aidan Warren. This is the man, the judge, who preside over our court proceedings within our Whanganui court here and try to meet the many commitments that our judges have to our people and to our Whenua. So here's his photo taken at his special court hearing at his old school te Aotea with his colleagues here that are a great majority of them presiding judges in their own courts and in their own areas. Some of them you probably recognise.
Yep. So yes, not only our Māori Land Court bench, but joined by some members of the District Court, the High Court and the Tongan Court. Samoan, aroha mai, Samoan Court. Supreme Court. So, into the focal point of our management structures. In-house we call it management structures. You're probably more familiar with referring to them as your trusts. So, just a quick overview and a table to capture it in a nutshell. Some of you are in the room as a Ahu Whenua Trust. Kia ora. So that means you're a trust over blocks or a block. You're a trustee over a block that's been vested for the purposes primarily economic development, but more importantly to develop and use that land in accordance with your beneficiary class, which happens to be your underlying owners. So as per your shareholder list. Ka pai? You've got a trust order, that's your rules document. We call it a trust order because it's ordered by the court. Maybe no one is a trust deed as well. Rite, same, just need to appreciate it is the same. It's your core document, and we'll be referring to this document again. So the whānau trust, again, over shares, it's administering shares. You may have the odd scenario where your shares are actually a whole block. If that is the case, I've got a little star noting there, provisions need to be made if it is a whole block. Ka pai? Just a little bit of under the table, borderline legal advice. But again, as you can see, the beneficiary class, who you trustees are accountable, because you're accountable to the court and you're accountable to whoever your beneficiary class is when you're setting up a trust. And the class there is determined accordingly by the whānau and cited in the trust order. Ka pai. Whenua tōpu, not very common, I think, nationally, but this is primarily the vehicle for treaty settlement land that's been returned and possibly returned into Māori freehold land. And then, just a subtle underpoint too, that Whenua Trust and Whenua tōpu can include general land owned by Māori. Ka pai. So, trust order is the rules document. That stuff that in the authority section, that's in-house stuff for what section of the Te Ture Whenua Māori Act enables this, or authorises this regime. Ka pai. And then the beneficiary class in a Whenua tōpu is as per the trust order, primarily a hapu, a iwi, or descendants of a tupuna, or many tupuna. Māori reservations, this is where this is a different type of setting in the sense that the owners have released their ownership into the trustees on the premise that it's set up as a reservation which has a communal purpose. So we'll be all familiar with the marae and the Gazette notice for marae perhaps, but there's the urupa, there's the wāhi tapu, there's the pā, there's the sites of significance, there's your puna. The list is quite broad in the Act. Your beneficiary class is as determined by your Gazette notice or by the court, and it's predominantly a hapu, an iwi, or, again, descendants of a tupuna. So we've got those rules document. Now for the marae, it's special. It's a charter. It's a legit document. It's legit, it's legitimated, or it's by being ratified, by being agreed to at a general meeting that has been duly notified for that purpose. A number of consultations might be taking place. At the moment, we've got a number of marae doing charter reviews to tighten up and to bring it up to date with common practices. But this rules document is supposed to capture how the trustees, along with any other committees they may have on the property that are working towards administering that reservation, operate. Ka pai? So, and that's by virtue of the Regulation 7 of the Māori Reservation Regulations. So trying to bring the law together to say this is what the snapshot is of our management structures. So if you're a trustee, the main thing is that you as a trustee, as a collective, have been given legal ownership of a property to manage, develop and take care of for the benefit of a class or set of people. Ka pai. I'll put Māori incorporations down there, but they're quite autonomous. They operate quite, because they're considered commercial entities, they have a lot of autonomy. They still have accountabilities back to the court. They have their own regulations too that they have to adhere to. But the regime is more like a company construct, where the company, the corporation, owns the whenua, and the whānau, or the underlying shareholders, own shares in that company. This is where we've got a hyperlink. Oh, tēnā. Rawe. Ka hia kia mai kei.
Can we see those? Excuse me. Can we see those numbers from the back there? Because what I wanted to do is, because I can't see them from here. True story. The point being, the reason we've asked to add this slide here is because it gives us an opportunity to visualise our context. Whichever particular trust we're working on, whether it's the Whanganui Trust, whether it's Whenua tōpu Trust, all these various trusts and the trustees enable us to build capability, because we as trustees can go in and give effect to our wishes, our aspirations and dreams for our whenua by stating those things in our rules of trust. This document here gives us the context of where we are at Whanganui in terms of what's happening in Aotearoa. And if we look at that first set of... thank you, I can read it now. When we look at those first set of graphs there, we have Aotearoa, who have 15 land titles and 659,100 freehold land titles. They are in Aotearoa 4,045 titles and 412 million and a half hectares. That's the playground we're playing in. And that's the playground that your Whenua Kooti Maori have been asked to take responsibility for. Moving through, we see the total of the management structures, including those structures governing reservations. The totals throughout Aotearoa are 8,473, of which 1,274 are here within the Aotea Kooti Whenua Māori Rohe. The areas that are vested in these structures in Aotea is 439,525 hectares, which represents 92% of our Whenua Māori. So we're not doing too badly in a percentage basis compared to some of the other regions. We also note, though, that there's still 40,000 hectares there, 8% of our whenua within our Aotea region, that isn't been vested in these structures yet. The purpose being of those structures to improve the capacity, the capabilities of our whenua to be developed, to be held in the way our people dream and aspire to. Okay? The other statistics that I thought were interesting to share are in terms of, there we go, the blocks of the management structures have an average of 107 hectares, 0.17, and an average of 203 beneficial owners, which with each beneficial owner we layer another level of complexity, but it can also be viewed as opportunity. So we have an opportunity to disagree or agree, which comes down to me, the underlying importance of tikanga, where we can establish common visions that express whanaungatanga, dreams and aspirations that we can all hold on to. That's the importance, I think, of establishing a kaupapa. No matter how big our trust is, no matter how many members we have, or how big. We also note there that the blocks without management structures have an average of 14.78 hectares and an average of 45 owners. Overall, the average Māori land book has a size of 53 hectares and 111 owners. So if you look back to the pieces of land that you're connected to and you've got 111 owners in your block, you're dealing with the average size block throughout Aotearoa. Okay? Kia ora tātou.
Excuse me, hello. Where do we get that information?
Tēnā.
It's here. We've got it.
Yes, so this Mighty Land update is a Mighty Land Court resource. It is available on the website, but alongside the presentation, copies will be emailed or sent out to conference participants. Ka pai?
So is this a part-time time or not? Are you taking questions now or at the end? At the end.
I'm happy to take questions.
Tēnā tātou, ko Caroline Scott, tako ingoa. My question is around, so it may be a myth and it may be just a kōrero or an attitude that a lot of owners of Māori whenua have, in the fact that they believe that there is an inability to develop their land in this type of summit that we're having now actually cuts that down. So are there going to be more of these, do you know? Because I know
I believe that's the intention. I'll refer you to Piri.
Okay. Only because I know there's lots of people that aren't here that I think should be here.
He pātai pai, Caroline. Look, this summit is a result of Te Manu Atatu's commitment to the landowners in this area, but it's becoming really evident that landowners are looking for something outside of the office and in an informal setting such as this, with the breakout to workshops, the information stores, where they're feeling a little bit better and more confident about seeking out that information. So much like our colleagues at TPK, we'll have to go back to the offices and make that known. We had a lot of inquiries for the summit to be online for people outside of the region who couldn't travel here. So we're hearing that message loud and clear. And I don't mean to get all markety on you, but over at the Maori Land Court stall, there is an evaluation form, and I encourage you to go and fill it out and make some noise about this kind of hui being an appropriate way for you to access information and support. Kia ora tātou. Because the bottom line is no one really listens to pity at work. So when I say this works, they go, oh, kia ora pity.
Tēnā tātou. Yes, this will be definitely something we'll be following up on. Our trustee training in terms of our Māori land court space, we have two offerings primarily. It's at the district level and at the national level. So the national level is primarily invitation based only. So our national office cohort, they will generate through the section 239s the applications for replacing or adding trustees. Any new persons that are seeking to be appointed, we try and capture those persons through an invitation to do trustee training, so that come the hearing, if they tick the boxes and meet the judge's criteria, will be appointed. Otherwise, appointment may be conditional on completing trustee training. So the other offering is at a district level. We still, I think most of our district officers still offer trustee training. It's still online. Similarly, the national training, it's an online format during the day one and an evening one, I think, monthly. The scheme of our trust orders, the main focus of this presentation is to say what our space is in this building trustee capability. So if you're setting up a trust, it does pay to sit down and have a chat with us, because facilitating the discussion with your whānau or your owners about this trust order will possibly be the most difficult part. You know, the whānau trust order is approximately 15 pages. The ahu whenua trust order that we've got as the hyperlink to this slide is close to 35, possibly 40 pages. 38. But it's important that whoever is leading the owners on this journey be all over and familiar with what they're trying to achieve, because at some point though the discussion can take place, and I'll talk to that more. So the first thing you're making a decision about is the trust name, and you're going through those meeting practices of making motions, having a discussion, and landing and showing collectively that a decision's been made, because the main evidence for this application is your meeting minutes, meeting of owners, the public advertisement, the attendance register. The next thing is defining your beneficiary class. Ka pai? For an ahu whenua trust, it's as per your owner's report. And hopefully you've got a good attendance of those owners in the room when you're having this initial discussion. Purpose and objectives. Okay, so in the standard template, which is the hyperlink at the bottom, which is available on our website as well, in our publication section, this is sets out this template was created by our judiciary and had in mind what would be the baseline requirements that they envisage trustees will be fulfilling. Ka pai? Because an ahu whenua trust, granted, it's got an economic focus, but for most of us, that ain't the end or be all. So if it's environmental, if it's wāhi, whakahirihira, whakawhanaungatanga, whakakotahi, then it's in the purpose and objectives where you can put your stamp on what that is, because this is where you're guiding any future trustees as to what it was, what your intentions were from the outset. The duties, powers and obligations. I think this is 50% of a whenua trust document, and it's primarily to give you those broad powers, and it's meant to be future-proofing what those powers might be to bind future trustees. Bearing in mind, one of the obligations too is to conduct a trust review. And that's normally every 5 years, and it's not meant to sound ominous because it's your own safety check, your own warrant of fitness check in with yourself at a trustee level, at the whenua level, and then engaging with the whānau level, because any changes to this document have to go through whatever the document's rules are around changing the document. How many weeks' notice you have to give, what is the quorum of owners that you have for that outcome to be legit or recognised by the court. And the court, when the application does land, does try to wrap around, if that threshold is there of support, it does try to wrap around making that outcome happen. Actually, I'm going to back up on that one. Oh, I've gone the wrong way. And then the other side of it is, if there's objections to what's happened, I should make this quite clear, because your application should be able to stand up to get to that outcome. But in the likelihood that there's an objection, the court too will work with the trust and the owners, and it will be highly likely that they'll refer the matter, if it has merit, back for another meeting of owners. Kapai? I guess the message I'm trying to say here is the court will give bearing to the owner's point of view and the trust point of view. So whichever case is presented stronger, and then they're reluctant to make a decision overarching that. So your trust order is required to have a dispute resolution clause as well. If you haven't pursued that at a trust owner level, then that's possibly what the court will revert to as well. That was an aside. Here's the suite of applications that are available in this trust space. Okay, so I've only highlighted the red ones as being sort of like ones that you might need to do now if you're looking at development opportunities. Replacing or reducing or adding further trustees to have an active trust cohort. Changing your terms of trust if you're wanting to really focus on whatever the development aspiration is, for example, hapakainga, and lock in some terms into the trust order that demonstrates your baseline rules around what that might look like. The standard template at the moment makes clear provision for the term of a licence to occupy. Okay? So the trust has the ability to grant a licence to occupy. It's at their discretion. It's a trust-to-owner arrangement, and if it's done all properly, it'll be notified with the court. It should be confirmed, noted with the court. Okay? So having a clear provision for licences to occupy and how long that licence is to be is just one way of demonstrating and locking it in for future reference. And what can that term be? Most of them are sitting at the 50-year mark. There is the odd one that's to the death of the grandchild's generation. So that could be up to 75 years. Sadly, they're not able to be forever and a day. Although we know they're forever and a day. Okay, retract. Okay, and then the trust review. The trust review is always an important trust check-in, because if anything's happening on Māori land, it's always going to be one of the owners that may be another obstacle to something happening in terms of objecting to. Kapai? So you'll see your trust order is geared up towards A, powers, obligations and duties of the trustees to primarily their owners. And consultation, communication is an important trustee duty. I think we're winding down. This page is sort of like everything on a page. Now, half of the stuff that we have, this is in our remit. And effective trusteeship is based on having good governance tools. And that's what I mean, like, we sadly are unable to provide governance training. So our trustee training is primarily on the basis of, firstly, our terms of trust, setting up trust, so foundation trust scope, and secondly, our application processes that wrap around that. trustee training we offer, which is fundamentally for encouraging people adhere to the duties of trusteeship, adhere to their terms of trust, and yes, have that introduction to being the legal owners in a collective capacity. But fulfilling that collective capacity means governance tools as well. So hopefully that could be the next discussion we're having with, I know in my district, that's the discussion we're having with Whenua Maori services about what that could look like. But in terms of features on Māori freehold land, what we're all familiar with, multiple ownership, tenants in common arrangement, it's rural, it's an underutilised or undeveloped, our blocks are underutilised or undeveloped. Most of our blocks don't have, but that's not the case apparently here in Aotea. But most blocks do not have management structures, and those that do have management structures have got resourcing capacity and capability issues.
I never told Maria that I was going to actually add this slide to the presentation, because I just wanted to take the opportunity, aunties, uncles, cousins, friends, to just to share a metaphor, and I want to use this metaphor of baking. Okay, we've presented to you a set of tools, like the whisk and the bowl and all of these ingredients, to lead to an action. That the action of the success of that action means we feed everybody and we all celebrate. But it takes a chef. And it takes a chef. And I'm introducing you to the chef of chefs. Okay? Because she speaks from experience. Not only has she got the recipe and she's done the recipe several times, she's had the opportunity to see where the pitfalls are. That's the blessing we have today, good people, with the presence of this wonderful chef amongst us today in our hui. I would say, and I would invite each and every one of you, if you've got a question about trust, if you think your families, your whānau, your people deserve information about trust, come and talk to the chefs. Come and talk to them, because there's some more chefs over there. There's some more chefs over there, okay, who've had experiences. They can see the pitfalls. You're only talking to the potato peeler here. But the potato peeler is absolutely proud to stand here with your Māori Land Court to deliver these things for our people. For our people. Now, I go back to this information here that says at the bottom, set the vision and direction. Personally, I believe that's an expression of tikanga. I believe that that's what our chief judge put these positions, all these chefs, in place in your communities, in our communities, to help develop. Not our visions, not the Māori Land Court's visions, but our people's visions. And we've already seen that the hundreds of landowners, the thousands of trust vehicles, each have a unique way of expressing themselves. And if we think a 37-page document is a difficulty for us to encounter and deal with as a trust group, then imagine how difficult we might find 37 years with the wrong trust document. And imagine how many arguments and discussions and all of those meetings that use up our time, our valuable time, could be avoided if we took more time looking more closely at those those founding documents. So that's the takeaway from this. I believe this slide here is the key takeaway from today. We say enhance the Whenua tukuhua. We say review the terms of trust, because sometimes when we hit a jarabar, we need to change course somewhere. We need to adjust, not just keep ploughing through. We need to talk about relationships. Whānau, remembering sometimes when that cousin over there is disagreeing with us, it just starts off as a disagreement. We can patch it up there and then, rather than it becoming a range war. We talk about the policies and planning, and when we talk about the policy and planning, we're talking about the opportunity for those policies that we want to give, to embody our dreams and aspirations within our trust document. We discuss them carefully and we consider it in our planning. And obviously we package that all up within our trustee duties. Tēnā koutou.
tēnā kōrero ara, ko tēnei tō tātou whenua, he whenua he tāma tuku iho, kei te ture tēnei, ngari kei o tātou, ko titia ki o tātou nei ngākau, kua tāngia ki o tātou nei rai, hei, tonu moa pōpō, moa, uria moa pōpō. Nō reira, tēnā tātou katoa.
Tēnā koe Maria, kōrua ko mai. Now, one of the pitfalls of this role is that I'm not cutting question and answer time. I'm encouraging you to pose any questions that you have when you go for a cup of tea. Because kei te karanga mai te whare a rongo, e ki ana te kōrero, ko tai noi o te karanga mo te tangata. So cup of tea is ready. I encourage you to go and have a cup of tea. And
have a coffee.
if you can find any of the chefs, and they'll be around for the next 2 days, pose your question about trust with them. O tino Maria, kōrua ko mai, tēnei te mihi anō kia kōrua e wama. Kōrero hea nei. Okay, let's go for a cup of tea. We're actually due back in here at 3:15, so it will be a quick cup of tea this afternoon. Tēnā tātou.
Kia ora.